Aloha, everyone. It's Wednesday, and that means it's News Day. And on this News Day, what adventures in the AI realm must the DAS Fellowship face this week? Wind grits the teeth at Seagate docks as Beth and Carl descend into the Siren Lattice vault. The ward key still bears last week's Echo Accord share, Skydata. Keep the lanes bright, but tonight it carves a new glyph into the brass. The masked tally, a counting ward that pauses any barred face until provenance is proved. Half the harbor slows and the tariffs bristle like quills. From a mirrored pane, harbor wardens hail the fellowship with news from the far bazaar. YouTube has armed its makers with likeness detection and is in open beta for partner creators. Lip synced auto dubs, and a 5 creator collab mode. It also allows A/B tests for titles and thumbnails, and the Ask Studio to decode analytics into plain speak. It spots stolen faces, makes translations match mouths, and helps teams publish smarter. The Courier lamp sale flares with clinical light. The European Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgeons reports an AI trained on tens of thousands of eye scans that predicts which keratoconus patients need early cross-linking and who can safely wait. In short, treat the right eyes sooner and spare the rest needless procedures. Then a Black Age writ slaps the quay. Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers Discovery sue Minimax over Hailuo AI, alleging it churns out downloadable images and videos of protected icons such as Darth Vader, Minions, and Wonder Woman, and markets a studio in your pocket. They want profits and an injunction. Our world's version, counterfeit illusions barred at the gate. Beth presses the masked tally into the lattice, ships idle without papers, and the Echo Accords promise exacts its price. Delay. The mercy protects, Carl murmurs, but the merchants will howl. Beyond the mist, contracts at the collab pairs begin to rewrite themselves to meet the tally. By dawn, someone must judge whose signatures still hold and whose faces do not. It is September 17th, 2025, and this is episode 553. And today we have Brian and Andy, and I am Junie. And this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching just a little later. If you haven't already, click the bell, like, subscribe, and join the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay, let us do a quick lightning round of stories from everyone before we delve into this week's news adventure. Andy, what
Yes.
is your lightning round story?
So China and NVIDIA. NVIDIA has been attempting to skirt the export controls implemented by the Trump administration. And part of that was they designed and delivered a new chip, the RTX 6000D, designed expressly for China. Well, Chinese companies had already been avoiding that. They weren't buying it in any significant quantity, in part because they can get the real, high-end NVIDIA chips on the black market or gray market, let's call it. They can get those at like half the price of the approved NVIDIA hobbled chips that are being designed for China. Well, in the last couple of days, China just said, nah, not to that. Every Chinese company is banned from importing any and or using any NVIDIA chips. This is, of course, for them to, they're not going to enforce whether they already have NVIDIA chips, but they can no longer buy from NVIDIA, period, including they have to cancel any existing orders. Now, that didn't have a huge impact on NVIDIA's stock price. Stock went down about 1%, which is, like not a good thing, but not that terrible either. So anyway, China's saying, nah.
I like the summary. China's saying nah.
Okay, Brian, do you have a lightning story for us?
Yeah, real quick. I think this is important. We haven't talked as much in the last maybe month or two about Model Context Protocol, or MCP for short, but it's still there. It's still making a huge impact. It's still, from what I can tell, considered to be maybe the a successor to like what we would typically call API connectors. It's really sort of built from the ground up to help agents talk to agents. The example we typically give on this is if you were building it in like Make or N8N, and you were doing something simple like connecting to a Google Calendar, and you wanted to make new calendar events, you wanted to edit new calendar events, you wanted to whatever the other thing is, those would all be individual little fingers or nodes that come off the main highway there of your workflow. And Model Context Protocol basically takes those 3 or 4 individual nodes that are also hard to prompt for, would combine them together, and then it just basically makes a Google Calendar MCP connector. And then what that would do for you is that it allows AI to be smart enough to go, I see what you're trying to do here with your request. You're trying to make a new calendar event for September 17th at 10 a.m. Eastern. And I'm smart enough now to know through the MCP connector to know how to go do that, as opposed to me having to specifically or explicitly prompt in the pattern. And that got very messy, created a lot of prompting, a lot of tokens. And MCP is aiming to solve that along with Google's A to A, agent to agent. So those two together are becoming really powerful. So this is just talking about how GitHub is now putting together a new MCP registry, and they do a really good job here. So I'll just read what they say at the top, just so you can understand why they felt this was a problem and why they're solving it. If you try connecting AI agents to your development tools, you know the pain. MCP servers scattered across numerous registries, random repos buried in community threads, which has been my experience, making discovery slow and full of friction without a central place to go. Meanwhile, MCP server creators are worn out from publishing to multiple places and answering the same set of questions again and again. The result is a fractured environment that's fraught with potential security risks. Today, this is GitHub saying this, we are taking the first steps towards solving this challenge. The GitHub MCP registry launches as your new home base for discovering MCP servers. Whether you're building the GitHub Copilot, agents, or any other AI tool that speaks MCP, this is a place to find what you need. With GitHub already home to most MCP servers, MCP registry makes them dramatically easier to discover, explore, and helping developers. Okay, so yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think other people, I have seen other websites, by the way. I don't think they're the first to try to organize MCP servers. But if we just switch over to this tab instead, actually, let me go back one. This is what it looks like. This is their registry. You can see there's currently 38 listed here. So not a ton, but it'll grow over time. And there's some really important ones in here. I will tell you right off the bat that I am very, very interested in working more with Azure AI Foundry, because we're literally doing this with a client right now. And we're building AI agents inside of Foundry that connect out to all sorts of other tools. But another one that's going to be really, really important is this Zapier one, which has been around for a while. But you can imagine now connecting into Zapier then helps you connect into many, many other tools. And so that becomes really, really valuable as well. There's other ones on here that you could look at that you might find, like Hugging Face or Monday, or I know, Notion and Stripe are on there, which both could be really, really helpful. So anyway, GitHub is trying to put this all in one place and make life easy. I am 100% for it. I do think MCP is ultimately going to make things easier for us developers who are building new solutions. But yeah, admittedly, exactly what they said. It has been difficult in the past to know exactly what's out there, what's reliable, what's being built. And yes, I have found myself in, one too many Reddit subfields or subreddits, where I am trying to understand who built what, where is it on GitHub, what problem is it solving. So it's nice that GitHub is trying to put this in one place and be a central repository for them. So yeah, all for it, right? All positive.
Some attendant facts. GitHub is a division of Microsoft now. It was a separate company until 2018 when Microsoft purchased it. So it's as a registry, like you think about industry standards and industry registries as being, necessary to creating a cohesive kind of market space for it. I think it's good and it's a fine thing that Microsoft and GitHub are stepping up to organize the MCP world in a way that's exhaustive and gives you a comprehensive access to everything that's been published out there, just as GitHub does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good call out.
Yeah.
I just looked, I counted super quick. If you count the ones that have a Microsoft logo on them, 8 of those are Microsoft. If you count 3 more that are Azure, so the Foundry one, Azure, and the Azure Kubernetes service, that's 3 more. So now we're at 11, and I'm just doing a quick look to see if I know does 12? No, that's Atlassian. Sorry, no, but that is still them. That's still Microsoft. That's 12. And there might be a few more that Microsoft owns on here, and I'm just not aware of it, like a Webflow or Logfire or something like that I'm not familiar with. But yeah, good call out, Andy. I wasn't even putting 2 and 2 together there. That 30% of the list are AI direct Microsoft products, or one removed. I mean, Azure is a direct Microsoft product, but you know what I mean. Yeah. They might own some of these other ones.
And it's like Andy said, it's good to see more of these maintained registries. Of course, I believe the largest one is still maintained by Anthropic. So there are several different registries that you can rely on for collation of MCP servers. Okay, so my quick lightning round story is Albania. Albania has introduced or appointed the first AI bot minister. So basically from a campaign of there seems to be a systemic corruption going on as a central issue with their EU membership for Albania and things like that. So one of the things that they have done, at least symbolically, is appoint an AI-generated minister called Diela. And so Diela will help monitor the proceedings and all of the legal steps and things like that, and provide insight into legal proceedings or political proceedings and things like that. So we'll see what comes out of it. It does seem to be a legitimate effort to introduce some sort of uncorruptible voice within their government. And less of a stunt, but we'll see how it really plays out, because there may be new laws that have to be created to even allow for any meaningful impact from this AI minister. So that's my quick story. It's fantastical. It's out on the fringes, but we may hear more and more of that in the future.
You know what I think is cool about that, Jimmy, is like, if you're just looking for some easy free press that really isn't going to hurt you, say that you have some new AI agent or bot that's taking some role. It will definitely meet and make the sort of headlines and things like that. And honestly, for the right marketing message or whatever, it's not the worst idea in the world. It doesn't really even matter if it comes to fruition or if it goes live or whatever. All you have to really do is say like, hey, we're seriously thinking about this or whatever. It will get picked up on, and it could be free marketing for, that government or whatever, whoever might be doing it or whatever. So I'm not saying anybody should bait and switch, but these stories are going to get picked up. So I just think it's interesting. Like you said, like, who knows if it'll actually meet regulations? Who knows if it has the laws to back it up? But here we are talking about it, right? So they're getting a little bit of a bump on our show and other places as well. So I just think it's cool.
Okay, now it's time for our stories of fiery passion. And Andy, I know you've got one for me. What is your story this week of fiery passion?
Okay, I have a few that I'm excited about, but I'll say that I'm more passionate about this one because I'm a follower of Anthropic, and I'm rooting for them. I think their constitutional AI, a more principled approach to the ethics of AI and implementation thereof, I really want to support, and I'm so pleased that they are doing so well in the world of coding. But today, or no, not today, but Monday, OpenAI launched GPT-5 Codex. Now, we've seen some advance notice about that, but that's their let's just call it their Claude code killer. They're trying to take the top spot there. And there are many who would argue that GPT-5's coding facility is better. So, for example, on the LM Arena, GPT-5 thinking barely exceeds Claude Opus 4.1. So they're right neck and neck, but that's on web development. It's kind of a limited range of coding tasks that can be tested by users using a browser and just asking it to do simple web development exercises. So they're slightly ahead of Anthropic. But now the interesting news is that Microsoft, which was in OpenAI's camp previously, but is moving away from OpenAI and being more generous in their inclusion of other models and such, they have just added an automatic AI model selector to Visual Studio Code Editor, so VS Code. This is a coding environment that zillions of coders around the world use. And that one chooses the optimal model for the coding tasks. And it appears that users are automatically getting Claude Sonnet 4 instead of the others. And that's an open admission from Microsoft that it feels that Anthropic's AI models are better than OpenAI's for coding. Now, they have obviously had an opportunity to work with Codex and GPT-5 because they're integrated to a large degree with OpenAI's things. But a leaked internal email revealed that Microsoft has been telling its own developers that, quote, based on internal benchmarks, Claude Sonnet 4 is the recommended model to use. So, plus, now, more good news for Anthropic. Microsoft gives them kudos. Now, Claude Sonnet 4 is also integrated into Xcode 26. Xcode is the coding platform for Apple development of applications. Okay, so anybody who's writing Xcode to do mobile applications in the iOS world, now they're getting Claude Sonnet 4 included in that environment. And that's the primary coding assistant. It's the first coding assistant that's been added to Xcode. So now they'll get natural language coding assistants. And that's another feather in the cap of Anthropic. I'm a fanboy of Anthropic. Go Anthropic.
Nice. Yeah. I heard just a bit about it being included in Xcode, which for Apple is a huge step forward in their lagging race for implementing AI in their ecosystem. So that sounds good for Apple.
Yeah, and so what if ultimately Apple says, okay, we're in a cluster here, let's just buy Anthropic?
Yeah,
it would be
yeah.
hundreds. It would be $200 billion today.
Yeah,
right.
It would be their largest purchase ever. It would be a double down all in kind of bet, but it's probably their most solid one to make sure that they're still in the AI game. Oh yeah, what ifs and what could the future hold?
Okay, I just want to add a quick follow up to this because I didn't know this, but Cisco is adding to this, and he said minor Claude story, Andy, but rebranding all of their internet facing tools to just Claude, less the name Anthropic. I didn't know that. I missed that in the news stories, interwebs and stuff. But I get it. I think the term Claude now is probably more recognizable than maybe Anthropic, and also not the worst move in the world. Just like Apple is the parent company, or Meta is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and so on and so forth. It kind of makes sense to me. Anthropic has other things that it's working on that aren't necessarily Claude. So having a little distinguish there that like Claude is the LLM, it's the coding one. People are knowing it for that. It's getting a lot of praise, as you guys were just pointing out. So yeah, I think that's actually that makes sense to me. So thanks, Cisco, for bringing that up because I didn't know that on there. I don't know about a fiery passion one, but I don't. I feel like it does not meet the criteria of fiery passion, Jimmy. So I apologize, but I do have another story here to share. But I do feel like perhaps it's a bit of a letdown. Okay, so OpenAI put out an article. What is that? Yesterday. You gotta love a news show because look, when did this happen? Yesterday. So this is by Sam Altman, Teen Safety, Freedom, and Privacy. I think there's a couple important things in here about how they're thinking about those three aspects. So I just want to call out a couple things. One, they talk about making very kind of briefly at the top here. They talk about making their security features even more private. They talk about even from OpenAI employees, like privilege in other categories, there'll be certain exceptions. I think this is important to know. For example, automated systems will monitor for potential serious misuse and the most critical risks, threats to someone's life, plans to harm others, or societal scale harm, like the potential massive cybersecurity incident, may be escalated for human review. So they're telling you, hey, use our tool. We're not trying to look at what you have, but there's some automated systems that could pick up on what you're doing and move it to human review. And that's important to know. But I think the second part, because this is where people be like, well, shouldn't I be able to just be an adult? And if I want to write a fictional story that depicts suicide, as they talk about right here, shouldn't I be able to do that? Shouldn't I, as they say here, treat adults, users like adults? It's Sam says this is how we think about it internally, extending freedom as far as possible without causing harm or undermining anyone else's freedom. So this is the second part of it. And I think this is good. They say it here, like the fault isn't for ChatGPT to talk in a flirtatious behavior. But they should be allowed to if that's what the adult wants to do. And then, if it's instructions on how to end their own life, that's one thing, and it shouldn't do that. But if it's a fictional story, then yeah, of course, that should be allowed. So treating adults like adults, I think, is obviously important. And this third part is about teens, and I am the dad of a teen, so of course this speaks to me. And they're saying that basically they're trying to separate. ChatGPT is intended for people 13 and up. My daughter has a ChatGPT account, but she's between those ages. And so they're trying to make sure there's a better distinction between that lowest level of 13 and 18. And as a dad and anybody that's dealt with teens, that the differences between a 13 and 15-year-old are drastic. The differences between a 13 and 18-year-old are out of this world. I mean, it's hard to even comprehend. It's like an 18-year-old talking to a little kid. And I don't mean to undermine any teenagers, but it's the truth, right? There's a lot of maturing going on during those critical years, the teenage years. So I agree. You cannot treat a 13-year-old like an 18-year-old, obviously. So they're talking about having age prediction system to estimate age based on how people use ChatGPT. If there's a doubt, we'll play it safe and default to the under 18 experience. In some cases or countries, we may also ask for an ID. We know this is a privacy compromise for adults, but believe it's a worthy trade-off. And they go on to talk about what else. Like, again, they go back to the flirtatious talk. That shouldn't happen, right? And if an under 18 user is having suicidal ideation, we will attempt to contact the user's parents, and if unable, we will contact the authorities in case of imminent threat or harm, rather. We shared more today about how we're building the age prediction system and new parental controls to make all this work. And I think this last paragraph here is important. We realize that these principles are in conflict, and not everyone will agree with how we are resolving that conflict. These are difficult decisions. But after talking with experts, this is what we think is best, and we want to be transparent about our intentions. And look, anything you do in these three areas, whether it's the freedom, the security, and obviously teenage use and stuff, is going to have heavy critical views on it. And there's no way they're going to appeal and appease everybody. There's just no way. So I like that they're just coming out front and saying, we're saying this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. And then truthfully, it is up to the user or the parent to decide whether ChatGPT, in this case, is the right tool. And should my daughter have access to it? And do I feel comfortable that she has access to it for school and other things like that? So I like this. I like what I'm seeing. But there's going to be a lot of people who feel like, there's issues here. And I mean, Greg is saying it. Trade-offs is how it begins. seatbelt laws has got us to where we are today. I don't know that I understand the seatbelt laws part of it, but the trade-offs I get. I understand that what you're saying, Greg, in terms of, is it a slippery slope? Is this a good thing? I mean, ultimately, it's going to come down to each individual user, and they're going to have to make decisions for themselves. I certainly remember my friends years ago who made the decision to get off of Facebook, but I didn't. But they did. They were like, that it's one bridge to, it's one more thing, and I'm done. And I had several friends. I don't remember what the tipping point was that Meta put out. It had something to do with privacy and security or whatever it was, and they said, it's too far. I'm done. And I think that's ultimately what everybody's going to have to decide.
I want to focus on the parental controls that are companion to this new technology that they're working on behind the scenes to both identify whether you're likely to be under 18 and modifying the range of responses that ChatGPT can provide to you. So you'll, as a parent of a 13 to 18-year-old, right, you'll be able to link your account to your teen's account. And that's just a simple email invitation, apparently. And that you can also help guide how ChatGPT responds to the teen. And there are model specific rules, behavior rules that you can select, right? So you can manage features and you can disable them. You can disable memory, for example, if you didn't want an accumulation in ChatGPT of information about your teen that could, eventually be exploited in some way. And it'll also, if it detects the teen that's linked to that parent account, doing something or saying something that is distressing, right, or indicating that the teen is in some level of distress, it'll reach out to the parent. And if they can't reach the parent in those situations, then it can also turn to law enforcement to intervene.
I mean, and again, I don't mean that anybody would agree with this. As a parent, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, that's somebody looking out for my daughter in that particular case.
I'm as a grandparent, I'm concerned about any kind of screen time for my grandson.
Sure.
And I can see how addictive it is. I mean, it's just like candy in front of a baby, right? And so I'm concerned about how and when do we introduce screens and tools like ChatGPT, even beyond 13. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could, free them from that until some later date? And listen, I'm no Luddite. I'm totally involved in the development and utilization of high-end technology. But I don't know if it would have been really beneficial to me if at age 14, I started spending a ton of time in conversation with, an AI that had no controls over it. And so I'm concerned about those things. And I really like the idea that my daughter, the parent of my grandson, can link an account and provide access, but in a controlled environment and with a lot of notification to the parent.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. And look, I can only speak from my experience. I tend to be around many more. Wow, this doesn't come out right. I'm around much more teenage girls than I am. There's a block of a sentence. But because obviously my daughter and all of her friends and, school and stuff like that, I mean, just Monday morning, I had 6 different teenage girls in the car. And of course, I'm not in all the conversations. I'm an adult in the car. I'm not like in every conversation, but I don't get the impression that this is going on, but that's kind of the thing too, right, Andy? You just don't know who might be quietly using, these AI tools and maybe perhaps using it in ways that are self-destructive or otherwise. And so having one more ability, and look, I'm going to be looking into it today. Like I said, my daughter has a free account. I've talked for a while about just creating a Messeri, family account so that it's a team account. And I'll have to look and see how this impacts it, whether that impacts my ability as a parent to work with hers. Because if we're in a team, do I get the same sort of permissions and stuff? That's something I'll be looking into for sure, because it could affect my decision on whether to create a team account, right? If my daughter is just another team member, but now because of that, I don't have the parental abilities, then it might make sense to keep them separate and keep it this way with their new guidelines in place. So something that I think all parents will have to look into, but I'll report back in the upcoming days as I find out more about it as well.
Okay. I want to switch to another topic, which does affect ourselves as DAS, mainly because it has to deal with YouTube. YouTube did a sort of had a big event yesterday. They had a live event talking about what they're rolling out and things like that. And apparently it also coincided with 20 years of YouTube and things like that. And so I wanted to give a quick breakdown of what of the features that had been announced and how it might, and get your insight on what you see as either useful or what might directly impact DAS as a whole. I think getting some initial ideas or insights on that might be really beneficial. So, like in the intro, I broke down a few of the features, and the main ones are things like likeness detection. So, a lot of these features, let me preference, a lot of these features are introduced. They were introduced earlier, but they were in experimental phase or beta testing and things like that, or they were announced a while back. But now we're seeing how it's being implemented on a wide scale. So likeness detection is to help you help content creators who meet certain subscriber and view thresholds. These creators will be able to detect, manage, and authorize the removal of any unauthorized videos using their facial likeness. So if you're not familiar, there is a lot of clipping going on where you will see dozens and dozens of channels that have nothing to do with the original content, but simply will clip it and put it under their own channel. I've seen this a lot on TikTok. It happens on YouTube and pretty much every platform. So this would empower those creators who don't want to have other people clipping their things, being able to identify and ask for takedowns. There are a lot of creators who do accept clipping because of it just getting their content out into more in front of more eyeballs. So we'll see how the long-term play for this is. Another tool, Ask Studio, provides AI-powered chatbot assistant that can guide users and answer questions on their account. So this is to provide insights and interaction from the creator side of things to ask about their content, their channel, and things like that. Now, this could see, I think this could see some long-term play, mainly because if you're not familiar with how to extract, data from YouTube and put that up against analysis of your content itself, and then provide a comparative analysis using whatever tool. I know we do it sometimes with ChatGPT and other AI tools. This is sort of YouTube's answer to that process, but by building it in. So I'm hoping that it'll provide some really in-depth analysis of our content and our channel and things like that. Then something that was launched back in actually 2023, but further expanded and looks like it'll be expanded to as many creators as possible, is the A/B testing. So there's a lot of insights drawn over the years about catching people's eyes, how quickly they click on thumbnails, what size, positioning of text and imagery and all those kinds of things that go into the title and the thumbnail. Well, the A/B testing will allow you to try 3 different ones, and then you can see the results. And YouTube will randomly push the various thumbnails and titles out to, you know, whatever the algorithm figures out of who your audience is, and see what kind of response that you get. This will help you dial in onto style and tone and all those kinds of things that you want to push forward. And then finally, the one of the big ones is the auto dubbing. Now, this rolled out to DAS a number of months ago, but it wasn't with lip sync. Lip sync's new. Auto dubbing was a very simple experimental approach. You could you could list a bunch of languages that that you wanted your videos to then be dubbed into. It did take about 72 hours to actually do a turnaround on it. So if you go back to some of our older videos and you want to listen to it in, you know, a dozen different languages, you can. But it didn't have lip sync, and lip sync's the new feature that they're integrating in there. The technology's been around for a while in AI terms, but like 11 Labs and things like that have had lip sync, but now YouTube's trying to roll it out to all of its creators. So a couple of big things from YouTube there. There is quite a few, but I wanted to pause here and just get your responses or your insights on those main features right now. I got two other big features that on this YouTube story. So, but tell me, what are your initial thoughts?
The one that you mentioned was the dubbing, correct? On that, yeah. I mean, obviously, look, I think this is something we've all known is coming, but I didn't honestly think it would happen this quickly. You know, I mean, we've seen the tools that could do it, the HeyGens and others, but if YouTube is getting to the point where they can make this pretty universal, I mean, just think about that. You know, the idea that our show could not only be overdubbed, but actually could look like I was speaking the other language, you, Andy, and it sounds like us, at least in terms of our vocal tones and stuff like that, obviously is massive. I mean, you look at what Mr. Beast was doing and what it was costing him, but he figured out pretty quickly that he could grow massively if he just overdubbed his Mr. Beast videos and then put them up on different channels in other languages for South America and different things like that. It's something he's been doing for years, but I'm sure at some significant cost. So if this is something that's going to be rolled in, I mean, the reality is it's just going to allow everybody to get their content, you know, their ideas out to larger audiences. Because certainly there's just as many people, you know, interested and curious about what we talk about in AI, but only may speak, you know, Portuguese or Spanish or French or otherwise. So this significantly helps. I think it sounds to me like a huge lift, but if they found a way to make this viable and YouTube can do this, I think it's super cool. I mean, I can't wait, honestly. I think
Well,
it's
it is a data and content engine for Google, right? So encouraging more content to be made on various levels is just going to feed into that larger machine.
I mean, look, and it goes both ways because I only speak English. You know, I've never learned a second language, and that's unusual if you live in other countries. A lot of times, English is definitely usually taught or learned in a lot of cases, but being from the United States, that hasn't necessarily been my case. So I don't speak any other languages. And just think about all the amazing content that I'm missing on YouTube, because I've always said this, YouTube is my main form of TV entertainment. That's the default way, not Netflix, not cable TV. It's YouTube. I have creators that I really love that for a variety of different reasons, and that's who I watch. You know, sailing channels and all sorts of stuff. Well, maybe there's a phenomenal, you know, sailing channel that's just in French. And now I'm going to have the opportunity to not only just hear the overdub, but actually really be invested and watch it as if I was a first person and it was English. I think that's pretty amazing. So I can't wait. I mean, honestly, I just like, it's going to open up my ability to consume content well beyond the borders of you know, the US or whatever. So, you know, makes the world just a little bit smaller, which is kind of cool.
Andy, any thoughts?
Yeah. I want to highlight the future that's possible with likeness detection and a kind of Google Lens type search across the entire YouTube library. It'd be very interesting to me to find out that I could put up a, you know, or just identify myself through the YouTube interface, whatever that's going to be, and say, okay, find me all the videos that have my face in it, and discover things that somebody posted on a YouTube, you know, that had nothing to do with this show or anything that I've ever been a creator for, but just I happen to be in the background or, you know, in the scene somehow, and be able to discover that. That gives rise to sort of people identification search. Now it's facial detection largely, I think, for likeness detection. I don't know that they're going to go beyond that. But I think that's very interesting that Google, like the preeminent search provider out there, is now going to make video broadly searchable for just likeness. Like I just provide a facial reference point, and it can find all the ones that are related to that. Now, it's very important for creators as well, because they want to see who is kind of, you know, purloining their content and trying to gain, you know, responses and engagement with an audience using their content. And that could lead to an easier method of controlling or patrolling that kind of, you know, misuse, I think, because I often find when I'm scrolling through YouTube shorts or whatever, or TikTok and elsewhere, I find that I say, yeah, I recognize, I think I've seen that and I've liked that particular thing before. And I look down to see who it is. Not the person. It's not the person I know is in that video. So they're using that, kind of reposting it. And there's even a function on one of them, Instagram or TikTok, called Remix, where you can take the whole thing and just post it yourself. Well, that helps to some degree, if and only if you get some kind of credit for that as the creator. Otherwise, you know, the value of the quality of the content that you created and its interest in developing engagement is accruing to the benefit of somebody else who simply just hijacked your content. So this is a tool that I think will be helpful. And I hope that they can apply that also to search this same kind of video likeness search outside of just the YouTube library. So you go and point it at Instagram, for example, and say, here, find what you can here on publicly available Instagram posts.
I get where you're coming from on that, and there's definitely going to be instances where you don't want you want any form of abuse of your content like that, but I kind of see it as sort of a marker or a milestone that you've reached, is that your content is important, useful, or popular enough to where people want to clip it and remix it and reuse it for their own purposes. So maybe there's a silver lining to that experience. So I do have a couple more YouTube things, and I'll wrap them up as quickly as possible, and then we can move on to our next story. But one of the things we've been talking about is YouTube Shorts and TikTok and things like that. Well, YouTube is rolling VO3 into, or a version of VO3 into their Shorts platform, right? Or part of the larger platform. And they'll call it Edit with AI. And so they came out with a new specialized model called VO3 Fast. It outputs at lower latency and at 480p, but for shorts, that resolution and fidelity shouldn't be too much of an issue. And so some of the things that they're looking at doing is just all the things that we've seen VO3 kind of do. We've seen people just generate new images or change the look and style of an image. And they even have some preset capabilities that they're putting in, like motion. Motion's their big one that they were advertising, where you could take a still image and then just add some sort of motion to it so that the still image moves around, or takes an action or something like that. So that'll be interesting in terms of how creative people get with it. They're also building in their Lyra 2 model that will take your speech, right, and convert it into some sort of song. So that might that might be a boom in the autotune. I don't know how well Lyra 2 works, so we'll see what kind of thing that we get from there. And then finally, YouTube is adding AI to help podcasters. So what's happening is, podcasting is huge. Everybody knows this, especially in the US and whatnot. Now they're trying to roll out, they're rolling out a tool that's going to help create videos from audio only podcasts. So you can, so you should be able to use your audio and turn it, and it'll generate some sort of video for you. So we'll see how this works. The podcasting arm of YouTube has put it in a lot of work. They're definitely trying to carve their own part of that larger market. They touted that they've hit 1 billion downloads, all those kinds of things. And especially when Spotify, well known for being in a big podcasting space, especially after they purchased Anchor FM, Spotify is pushing video podcasts and things like that on their platform. So there seems to be a sort of Netflix HBO thing going on here, where one wants to be the other before the other is the other one.
Yeah, the other
so,
one, yeah.
Right. So
By
we'll
the
see
way, I mean, because we were such an early adopter of Spotify's YouTube, our Spotify's video content, this is the end of last year. So now we're over 10 months the other way, right? But at the end of last year, remember, we got a thing along with all our analytics from Spotify, and we were in the top 5% of all video podcasts on Spotify. That just tells you, because I mean, look at the size of our show, right? Like, that just tells you like how early adopter we are as part of that process. I've been putting up the video version of it on Spotify for forever, since the beginning. I don't think I've ever done it as just a simple audio podcast on there. So yeah, I mean, we'll see at the end of this year if we I would imagine quite a few more people have entered that arena, but we'll see. Hey, I have a quick pivot off of kind of Google to Google. Can I talk about it real quick? Okay, super quick on this one. Nano Banana, been in all the news, right? And boy, does Gemini know they have a hit there. You could tell early on. I had a post on LinkedIn maybe 2 weeks ago that was like, hey, do you know how now Gemini or Google is like really happy with where Nano Banana is? They took a name that usually is discarded after the fact, that it was on the what's that called when it's the test board and they're tested back and forth. You just said it earlier, Andy. Not the leaderboard, but when you independently test the models. You're on mute.
The A/B testing.
You're talking about LM Arena?
Yes, Ella Marina. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Andy. All right. So anyway, that's what it was named, Ella Marina. Then it came out and Google was like, yeah, it's just 2.5 flash, right? That's just what is our new image thing. And then very quickly showed up the little banana icons that they made at the bottom of Gemini. And I was like, oh, they know they got something here. Well, that didn't even scratch the surface. Check this out. So as of Friday evening, Google Gemini is the #1 on Apple's top free apps chart for the US. ChatGPT is in second position, with social apps Threads rounding out the podium. By the way, didn't know Threads was that successful, but check this out. You want to talk about, hitting all the right notes right now. Google's search app is in 6th. Google Maps is 8th, Google Chrome is 13th, and Gmail is 21. And Gemini is currently number 1. Now, Canada and UK, Gemini is number 2. From the launch, check this out. From the launch on August 26th to September 9th, the Gemini app saw 23 million new users. Nano Banana has been used to edit over 500 million images in that period, August 26th to September 9th. Not even 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah, not even 2 weeks. 500 million images were created. Talk about a hit. They really, really, and the funny thing here is that I just think somebody somewhere, just like all these Q Star and all these other names that come up, and you gotta put them in the LM leaderboard and stuff like that. Somebody was like, call it Nano Banana, and it just, I think because it rolls off the tongue, it's kind of fun to say. Maybe it reminds people of Savannah Bananas. I don't know why they did that, why it's Nano Banana, to be honest with you. But it's funny to see this name that was probably just an internal thing. It wasn't ever meant to be a thing. And Gemini is like, yeah, no, people like it. We're going to lean fully in on that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a Google Nano Banana, maybe independent, like one-off app, honestly, called Nano Banana, because it's been very, very successful.
I have a quick weave on Google there before I go over to a whole other major player here.
Do it.
And that is, we're going to end up doing another whole show on the educational applications, but leading the way to large degree is Google. And you've heard about Notebook LM. You've heard about Learn LM, which is their best-in-class pedagogy-infused family of models. It's now incorporated directly in Gemini 2.5 Pro. But now, yesterday, they launched on Labs. They didn't launch it. They announced that it will soon be available in Labs, and you can sign up on a wait list for a new product in this range of educational platforms called Learn Your Way, which transforms textbook material into interactive guides. Now, most textbooks are now available digitally as well. I mean, you have to buy them, but if you have to buy the digital textbook and you want to have a tutor to teach you the textbook, well, Learn Your Way is going to do it. Now, there's some videos up at, I'll tell you the URL of this here. It's, let me find it here. Here it is, learnyourway.withgoogle.com. So there's a whole new domain that they're using, withgoogle.com. Learnyourway.withgoogle.com, and you'll see Learn Your Way, experiment. You can join the wait list or see a short video on how it works, reimagining textbooks for every learner. So really amazing movements forward in the pedagogy of AI-supported learning. Now, I have to shift over to what's happening today and tomorrow. Converging on Menlo Park, California, are hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of people going to ZuckerCon. ZuckerCon, which is the Meta Connect 2025 conference. Okay. And Zucker will be doing a live keynote address at 5 p.m. Pacific today. And you can get there with your VR goggles if you want to, or you can go and just look at him online as he does that as well. So he's going to be saying a lot of things, mostly about wearables and specifically the glasses. And earlier in the chat conversation here on today's show, someone was saying, I saw a Westworld episode where someone was using AI and they didn't have any devices at all. It was like giving them audio and they had some kind of way of it being visualized. Well, it's a little hacky, but we're going to have very thick rimmed glasses that have all of that, both audio into the ears and what's going to be announced today is the Ray-Ban Meta display glasses. Okay, so Ray-Ban and Meta together with a waveform guide display that's full color into one lens. Okay, so you'll be able to see in a high resolution display in full color, augmented reality, so additional information presented to you on these glasses, the new ones that are coming out. Plus, it comes with a wristband that detects your hand movements so that users will be able to finger type on a virtual keyboard to reply to a message, no matter the surface. They can just do it, like right now you have to do it in front of your glasses, right? So that the camera's seeing it, but it doesn't matter. You can have a a keyboard, like a thing that you unfold that has no action at all, but just it'll track your hand movements across that virtual keyboard, and you'll be able to reply to that. So it's tracking, that wristband is tracking your hand movements, and it'll give you accurate control over many features of the glasses. So you get an audio, full color video in one eye, at least at this early stage. But the downside is stylistically, you're going to have, big you look like, I don't know who the character is who has really, really thick framed glasses, but that's what those new glasses are going to look like. By the way, glasses plus AI companions are going to ultimately be the way I think most people interact with AI. So companions, that you talk to continuously through the day, why? Because, this AI companion never sleeps. It's going to want to be with you omnipresently. And those omniscient, like camera fed and listening devices that are on your head, those life coaches that help you through those wearable devices, most people will use that for advice on all kinds of things, down to like, what does that sign mean, all the way up to, what's the best strategy for me now, given this major turn of events in my life? Talk to me about that, and let's discuss that. That kind of AI support and companionship is going to come largely through this kind of interface, not sitting at a desk.
That sounds some pretty sci-fi stuff going on there, Andy. I'm not exactly sure if I want to walk down the streets of California with everyone. Have you ever seen the movie They Live? And there's a point where okay. John Carpenter, fantastic. Chew bubblegum, all out of bubblegum. Famous lines. But but there's a point where the hidden aliens all realize that you can see them. And so now you're just going to have everyone with these glasses looking at you as you walk down the street. And I don't know, that sends up the primal lizard brain of mine going tingling. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. But having one sounds pretty cool. All righty. So I wanted to wrap up on a couple of quick stories just to make sure that we checked all the boxes. And let's talk about the Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers copyright infringement suit against Minimax. So Minimax, if you didn't know, is a Chinese company that is in the generative AI space, specifically in AI video and image generation. They made a big splash with one of their models called Hailuo AI. It's been out for a little while in AI terms. And people are using it to generate whatever kind of imagery that they're interested in. But the claim is that Minimax specifically was using copyrighted imagery and icons and characters from these various companies in their whole campaign, their whole sales pitch and marketing. So it looks like the big IP holders are coming after Minimax, one of many Chinese model companies. So we'll see what kind of plays out from this. I don't know how effective it's going to be. It may just be something to try and set precedent in larger courts so that other AI generated companies, models can be picked apart, or at least sued and try to get some sort of compromise going on what they think is happening with generative AI, which does make me think, how much of a case do they have after the big Anthropic ruling? But this could be in the courts for, I don't know, years. Okay, and then finally, our AI and science story. because I'll always do an AI and science story if I can. And this deals with the European Society of Cataract and Refractive Surgeons. So, like I said in the intro, they now have an AI that can predict who will go blind through a particular disease or deterioration called teratoconus. And so that affects 1 in 350 people. And so what this AI was trained on, this model was trained on tens of thousands of eye scans, and they were able to get an extremely high rate of 90% of identification. And to suggest how early, if or not, a patient should do the treatment, the cross-linking treatment. And that cross-linking treatment is successful in 95% of the cases. So we're talking really high numbers of accuracy and really high numbers of success, which could prevent blindness and other eyesight deterioration if caught early enough. So big win on that side of things, on AI and healthcare side of things. As someone who has nearly always worn glasses and who uses their eyesight heavily each day, let's just hope I don't have to deal with keratoconus. But if this process can get fast tracked and into people's hands or people's doctors' hands, then I think that'll be a great win for maintaining eyesight in people. Okay, so that is what I got here. Andy, do you have any stories that you really want to touch upon before we wrap up for the day?
I have a couple things, but we'll push them to another day. Friday, we'll be able to talk about it.
All right. Awesome. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. To all the folks in the chat, our viewers, our subscribers. And if you want to continue the discussion, please join the discussion in our Slack community. Head over to dailyaishowcommunity.com and sign up. Thursday, we're doing a Higgs field AI tool review. Higgs field has been pushing out lots and lots of different applications of the various tools. While they do have their own models. They've sort of collected a bunch of different models, and so they're kind of like a platform. And then on Friday, we've got our favorite stories this week. So until then, we'll see you all tomorrow. And Andy, if you could close the stream for us. Aloha.
Aloha.